Hey everyone, I wanted to make a quick video today. I just wanted to jump right into it. Let's talk about cars and what they mean to me. I wanted to talk about the two different views about, or the two different schools of thought about cars, and compare and in the end talk about my own opinions, but I'm just going to jump right into it. I've gone into detail about my thought processes about cars in two blog posts that I've written before. So let's just jump into it. So I've been an adult for about 8 years now, and there aren't a lot of big events in my life that can be counted as milestones, and one of those milestones I feel like would be my first car purchase. Every time I think back at what advice people give me about cars, and it's always practical advice: go for reliable cars, go for resale value and all of these things. But what tends to happen is that there's a stereotype that gets associated with people from my community and people in my situation. So every time I go to an Indian grocery store, I see that stereotype in full effect. What I mean by that is, the Indian grocery store is in a suburb of my city called Dublin, and there's a huge Indian community there, so the Indian store is also located in that place. Every time I go there though, the parking lot is full of nothing but Toyota Corollas, Toyota Camrys and Honda Accords, and that's it. As far as the eye can see, there are just these three vehicles, or in different model years and in different trims, but those vehicles in particular stand out every time because they check all the boxes, right? Reliable, resale value, XYZ, all of these things. And it just makes me sad and dejected, because is this what is in store for me? I mean that it seems like society just has a path laid out for me, because the powers that be have ordained that this is how you're supposed to live your life. At X number of years, you're supposed to do this thing. At this year, you're supposed to do this thing. So once you get a job, you get settled, you get married, and then you buy a house, and then all of this and that, and so on and so forth. And in one of those things is that you buy a car, and that car is always going to be the most practical car. As I said before, it checks all the boxes, right? If I buy a vehicle like that, I feel like it would be a sign of resignation, or a sign of just giving up to the powers that be, the powers that have just preordained that I have to live a certain way, I have to dress a certain way, I have to buy a certain car, for example. Is it not also important, let's say, that every time I look at a car that I'm going to get in and out of several days, several months, several years, that it should be something that brings a smile to my face every time I see it? Is that not an important thing? Is a vehicle just a metal transportation box with four wheels, seats, and safety features and all of those bells and whistles? Is it not more than that? Is there not an aspirational aspect? I harken back to the aspirational aspect can be summed up by, Sachin Tendulkar bought a Maruti 800 with his own money when he was 18 years old, and at that point of time, that was a symbol of aspiration, right? And we have moved past that. Now there are different kinds of brands and all of these things, and there are fancy cars and all of these different options in the marketplace out there. And I want to think in a way that's not just this practical aspect of things and become a stereotype, or just fall into the same line and also ran as all of these other people. I'm not saying that what they have done is illogical. Absolutely, they have done the most logical decision, and I don't know their story and their background, but when I am standing at the door of the Indian grocery store and all I can see, as far as the eye can see, is just those kinds of cars over and over again, it makes me feel like if I also buy a car like that, it would just be an admission of defeat, quite frankly. Am I being out of line by saying that? Or have the powers of capitalism really had that much of an influence on me, if you're into that sort of thing? Have I just been brainwashed by these ideal experience of a car or something like that? Or am I too wrong in thinking that car should bring a smile to my face because it was something that had a connection with me when I bought it? I have a few examples of cars that have caught my fancy at this point. One is the Subaru BRZ Scion FRS, and the second is the Volkswagen Golf GTI. Both of them for two different reasons. The GTI is sort of the middle ground between the econo boxes or the practical options of the ones that I mentioned earlier, and sort of the flight of fancy sort of vehicle that the BRZ exemplifies, in my opinion. It's not a Porsche 911, it's not some BMW or a Mercedes Benz or anything, but it seems like just hitting the sweet spot of, it's a sporty looking car, it has some power to it, it has handling and all of these things that a car that was built to be an appliance does not have. I've been behind the wheel of a Toyota Camry and I don't get any response from it whatsoever. It just feels like a big floaty, bloaty kind of a situation, just like driving a mixer grinder. Oh, look at me, I bought a new mixer grinder, it makes great coconut chutney. Big whoop. What does it do apart from having an infotainment system that doesn't even have Android Auto yet, by the way? I'm getting into the weeds here, but you get the point. Why should I follow the norm? Because just my elders said so, because society has said so, because that is just a preordained thing and I'm just supposed to be following these tacit social agreements as if I am just a rotting log floating in a fast flowing stream next to a waterfall. One day I'll fall into the waterfall, and just like a number of other logs that have just floated down the stream like me, am I supposed to just do that? That's what it exemplifies to me. Just maybe if I buy the car that I want, it would be a small act of defiance against the oncoming tide that is inescapable, the events that need to happen or will be happening in my life that I may not have any control over. This will be one thing that I do have control over, and before the inevitable happens, I will have something that will serve as a reminder that it wasn't all bad. So what do you guys think? Is a vehicle to be just a metal box with four wheels that provides transportation? Is it only to be a utilitarian thing and any other quality ascribed to it is completely nonsensical? Or do cars have that value? Let me know.